Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. In today's episode, we wanted to have a quick rundown of the U.S. military units that are being sent to quell the illegal alien insurrection that is taking place in and around Los Angeles. Now, you're going to hear the mainstream media use catchphrases. They're going to state things that are also simply untrue as well, as most of you obviously know. Now, one of the biggest lines, one of the biggest pieces of misinformation is the so-called use of federal troops that are being sent to Los Angeles. Federal troops, federalized troops, are being deployed to Los Angeles as if they're going to use these forces to start shooting people in the streets and utilize a military formation to conduct sweeping operations through the city and county of Los Angeles. That is simply not true. That is not what is happening. So first, we have to look at the military units that are being sent to Los Angeles. Now, the majority of the forces are coming from the California National Guard. The California National Guard can be activated and be placed under federal control. That would include the 79th Infantry Brigade and the 49th Military Police Brigade. That unit would form elements of the 40th Infantry Division. Now, the 40th Infantry Division is just not made up of units in California, but other states as well. So you would have a multitude of states supplying for National Guard formations in the event of war to make up this 40th Infantry Brigade. But specifically, the Army California National Guard that is being used. Now, these are not full-time active duty units. Obviously, most people know that. And I would say this video would be more for persons who live in other countries and may not fully understand the concept of the U.S. National Guard. Because, again, when you hear federalized National Guard troops being sent to California, in many countries, in some countries, the National Guard or other paramilitary formations are full-time active duty units. California National Guard is not that. So essentially, when you join let's say you join the 79th Infantry Brigade as a National Guard member. So you go through basic training, you go through your infantry training, which is all in one training. They go through the same training essentially as a normal active duty U.S. soldier. However, they don't go to an active duty unit. In the case of a soldier that belongs to the California National Guard, they go to one of the 79th Infantry Brigade's battalions that are located throughout California. You can see here 1st Battalion, 160th Infantry Regiment, 1st Battalion, 184th Infantry Regiment, 1st Squadron, 18th Cavalry Regiment. So you join the National Guard, and then once a month you show up for about 2 days and you do localized training. Now, there are some cases where these National Guard units are activated and augment U.S. Army units on deployments around the world, and especially during the GWAT. I mean, that was pretty common for these units to be deployed to areas such as Iraq and Afghanistan, and many in fact did. Now, again, these units are not active duty military units. These are Californians living in California that are being mobilized to report for duty in the Los Angeles area. Now, what are these guys doing? Are they Are they roaming the streets conducting close quarter combat operations against these illegal aliens? And the answer is no, they're not. The purpose of the California National Guard, that, yes, were federalized by order of the U.S. president, are essentially security guards. They're there to protect federal buildings. They're there to protect federal buildings. Why are they trying to protect federal buildings? Well, because the federal government cannot rely upon the Los Angeles Police Department and the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department because of the political leanings of the city of Los Angeles. They can't rely on these organizations, these local municipal law enforcement organizations, to protect federal sites. It could be federal courthouses. It could be any federal building, from an IRS building. I mean, probably not too many people would care if one of those were burned down. It could be anything. Now, it could be a FBI building, DEA building. It really runs the gamut in terms of what kind of federal structures are there in Los Angeles. But instead of having those agencies protect their own buildings, they're having the National Guard be deployed to protect those sites. So those agencies can go out and enforce law and do their jobs instead of protecting their own sites or distributing much needed personnel to protect some of those buildings. Now, they will also rely on other federal agencies outside of California to deploy federal assets in terms of law enforcement as well. Those are the individuals that'll be going out and apprehending these illegal alien insurgents that are out there attempting to change the very nature of our republic. Again, this whole concept of what's happening right now is designed and purpose-built to bring in these illegal aliens. Its purpose was to change the U.S. into a unitary one-party state. And that's why they're there. And that's why what we're seeing happening right now in terms of these mass deportations that are underway, that is the reason this is happening. But again, the purpose of the National Guard specifically is to protect these federal buildings and federal assets. Now, obviously, they're going to have somewhat, or they could have somewhat of a prominent role because of the nature of the insurgency by these illegal aliens that is ongoing. Obviously, they're going to be there in front of the building or whatever structure they're there to protect, to defend those sites, and obviously that's going to have somewhat of a media presence watching what is happening. Again, these are not forces that are going out just sweeping streets. They're there to protect whatever their mission is, to protect said federal site. Now, the units of ICE and those units, those federal agencies tasked with the apprehension and the deportation of illegal aliens, that's going to be a little bit different than these military units that are purposely designed to defend these federal buildings from looters, Antifa, and the illegal alien insurgency that was brought upon by the Democrat Party here in the United States. Now, what's interesting is an active duty unit of the U.S. military has actually been activated. And that unit is going to be 2nd Battalion, 7th Regiment, U.S. Marine Corps. This is an active duty U.S. military unit. This is not a California National Guard unit. This unit is based in 29 Palms, i.e. 29 Stumps in California, and that unit is in this area over here. I missed it. Anyway, it's just east of Los Angeles, out there in the desert. There's essentially a Marine regiment of multiple battalions based there, and one of those battalions, about 700 troops, has been deployed to the Los Angeles area. Now that again is an active duty unit, meaning that those Marines go through Marine training. They go through Marine infantry training. They're assigned to the 2nd Battalion, 7th Marine Regiment, and they are full-time Marines. That's what they do. That is an active duty military unit that has been sent to Los Angeles. Now, what the mission of that unit is, difficult to say. I assume that it is a contingency plan in case this really gets out of hand, and in case it becomes extremely kinetic, meaning that the illegal alien insurgents actually start picking up firearms and attacking law enforcement officials. And you can't rule that out. And that is why you are probably seeing the deployment of those Marines to kind of augment what is happening in regards to there's 29 Palms. But that unit is, again, from 29 Palms, is there as a contingency plan if what is happening in LA starts to escalate. And look, we know there are external actors. We know that there is a lot of money from neo-Marxist organizations and corporations that support these neo-Marxist organizations that are supporting these riots. Look, these are organized rebellions that are organized by the Democrat left-wing socialist communist party here in the United States. Make no mistake of it. These are not riots and disturbances that are just impromptu. They just start up for whatever reason. That is not the case. These are highly organized insurrectionists that are purposely burning down federal sites, federal buildings. They are attacking federal law enforcement agencies. To some extent, they are attacking the local police as well. LA Sheriff, LA Police Department. But LA Police Department, LA Sheriff's Department is caught between a rock and a hard place. Obviously, they're there to enforce law, but at the same time, they have these left-wing Democrats that run Los Angeles that are essentially telling them to stand down. Don't help the feds. Don't help the federal government enforce immigration law. And yes, the LA sheriffs, the LA police could probably do a lot more than what they're doing. And because these federal sites and these federal officers and agents who are being attacked by these illegal alien insurrectionists and insurgents are not being fully assisted by local municipal law enforcement agencies, that is why the president has ordered in the California National Guard. And again, these are not highly trained law enforcement officers. They get rudimentary training in disturbance control and crowd control. Okay? Now, the Marines from 29 Palms are going to see and have more training. They're probably undergoing training right now, or there's additional units at 29 Palms, probably as we speak, active duty units that are going through disturbance control training and set operations just in case a further contingency plan is needed to bring in additional forces. But again, you're also going to see additional federal agencies supply manpower and law enforcement officers to what is happening in Los Angeles. You're going to see law enforcement officers from the U.S. Marshal Service. You're going to see law enforcement officers from the Federal Bureau of Prisons. The Federal Bureau of Prisons has a disturbance control unit at each prison site. Those federal officers can be also used if needed. And in the case of these federal law enforcement agencies, it just takes them a little bit more time to kind of mobilize and then deploy them to Los Angeles. Whereas with the military, California National Guard, the Marines at 29 Palms, they can be immediately deployed, right? They're there for this kind of contingency. The other federal agencies are going to have to essentially they'll try and get volunteers, whether it's the Marshal Service, the FBI. FBI may be a little bit different, DEA, ATF, what have you. These agencies will supply personnel, but it takes them a little bit longer to marshal up these personnel, get them to Los Angeles. And again, that's one of the reasons why you're seeing the deployment of these so-called federalized troops to Los Angeles. Again, they're California-based soldiers. So out of the 4,700 troops that have been alerted for this operation, 4,000 of them are from California. And in fact, obviously, 29 Palms is in California itself. Now, a lot of those soldiers are from other U.S. states as well. It's safe to say that most of the California National Guard troops from the 79th Infantry Brigade and the 49th Military Police Brigade are from California, in Southern California, or areas throughout California. 29 Palms, active duty units, that unit is made up of U.S. Personnel from all over the United States. What percentage is from California, difficult to say. But nonetheless, a lot are made up from Marines on the East Coast, the Midwest, what have you, form that 2nd Battalion, 7th Marine Battalion that was also deployed. So hopefully that makes a little sense when you hear these federalized troops being deployed to California. Again, most of them live right there in Southern California, or wherever their California National Guard unit happens to be based. And that is what is happening. And I anticipate, again, we'll probably start to see additional actual federal law enforcement agencies from all over the United States start to be brought in. And, they could also federalize as special U.S. Marshals, even local law enforcement agencies. Municipal law enforcement agencies could be brought in and assist and or augment those federal agencies as well. But it takes time and organization to do that, and I would only envision that happening if this really spirals out of control and starts to become an actual armed insurrection by these illegal aliens, meaning that they start to pick up rifles and raid gun stores and start to actively attack federal law enforcement officials and or local municipal officials as well. And I would say at this point, that's not outside the realm of possibility. It's not. Again, right now, you're probably looking at 1 million illegal aliens living in Los Angeles. 1 out of 10 persons living in Los Angeles is an illegal alien. And again, these were brought in intentionally by these Democrats to change the political equation on the ground inside the United States. California is losing people. California wants to keep its electoral votes. And the way to do that, how do you do that? Well, you bring in illegals, and thus you have a higher population. And 9 times out of 10, these illegals that you bring in, because the state, these left-wing states are going to give these people money. They're going to provide them with handouts, just like they're doing in countries such as the United Kingdom by just handing out free stuff to these these illegal North Africans and Sub-Saharan Africans that are coming into these nation states legally, illegally. Again, it's purposely designed to change the social construct and political construct of said nation state. Again, if you have a population, 51%, that is reliant upon that government in power, then that 51% of the population will want that government to remain in power. And that's the threat. And again, these people aren't even from the United States. They're illegals. Again, this is the same political body. This is the same political power, the Democrats, that during the early stages and leading up to the first Trump administration, they decided to concoct this Russiagate allegation. They went out, the DNC hired a UK asset, a retired UK asset, to create this Russiagate hoax and then hand that dossier, the Steele dossier, over to the FBI, who was then instructed by the Obama administration and Hillary Clinton, who was Secretary of State at the time, to investigate their political opponents. Same group of people that also have decided to change the political equation inside the United States by allowing these illegals to come into the United States freely, give them money, give them housing, let them stay here. And when the political equation changes, i.e. a new administration, they go into rebellion. Purposely designed. Look, at the end of the day, none of these people have the right to be here. They can say, well, we're just undocumented immigrants. No, you crossed into the United States illegally. If you want to come to the United States, get in line, do the paperwork, announce yourself, swear allegiance, and become a citizen. That's not what these people are doing. Most of these people that live in Los Angeles, their allegiance is still to Mexico. If you see the riots that are happening right now, what do they have? Do they have American flags? Absolutely not. You'll see very few, if any, American flags. They're Mexican flags. Their allegiance is to Mexico. But they're here to try and profit off the American system and send that wealth back to Mexico. And eventually they will or may not go back to Mexico. They do go back to Mexico quite a bit. Probably not as of late because it's become more difficult. So some of them are essentially, I wouldn't say trapped here, but they choose to live here because it is a better life. But at the same time, when this sort of thing happens, they rebel. They show you that their true allegiance is essentially racist. La Raza, you see this La Raza organization called The Race, right? Again, this Mexican nationalist organization based here in the United States. Again, it's not pro-American. It's not American at all. It's Mexican. It's Mexican nationalism. And eventually they would like to see, in all likelihood, California, New Mexico, parts of Texas, returned or create some sort of pseudo Latino-Mexican state, ultimately. Just like if you look at what happened in Kosovo. I would say I would not completely rule that happening here in the United States. Meaning these Mexican minorities become a majority and then demand some sort of semi-autonomy or autonomy or even independence. Who knows? But that's the way it's heading right now. And that's why it's important to get rid of everyone. All 12 million of them. Get the hell out of here. You're not wanted. Bye-bye. We'll figure out a way to pick our fruit. We'll figure out a way to clean our toilets. Look, we put men on the moon. We'll figure out how to pick our own goddamn fruit. We'll figure it out. We'll be all right. As always, have a good day.